Hey, so there is a major update for NotebookLM today with a whole bunch of other things that dropped, including the ability to pay for a more robust subscription. But probably the most interesting and exciting thing for a lot of people is going to be the new ability to join an audio overview. So as you know, NotebookLM can take a variety of sources and create a podcast. And now you can actually talk to those podcasters and ask for information about what it's learned from those sources. So we'll demonstrate that here.
Okay.
So let's get in and get started looking at this interactive mode. So it's available here. I've generated a new audio overview from these sources. I had one before, but for today's purposes, I want to have a fresh one because that's what they recommend. You can sometimes go into older notebooks and have these interactive conversations, but I found that that doesn't always work. And what they recommend is starting fresh. So I've done that, and now let's move into interactive mode.
Like these visual cues
Right.
that signal. Yep, go on.
Hey, can you tell me about Wong Kar-wai's use of costume?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because it's true. The costumes really do tell a story. We were actually just about to get into this, but since you asked, we can jump to it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're not just there for looks, they're part of the character. And we're just talking about how camera angles express feelings. So costumes do that too.
What's fascinating here is that the source material backs this up. There's a lot about how Wong Kar-wai uses costumes. They're like visual cues that show character development and also hint at the story itself.
Oh, like the cop in Chungking Express. We were going to talk about this. His uniform turns into more casual.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. And that's actually mentioned in the source material, how costumes change with character development, like with Bailing in 2046.
Right. And in Days of Being Wild, we were going to mention how the earrings spark the connection between Yeti and Liang, which also kind of foreshadows the relation.
Exactly. And they also reflect a character's inner state. Like Yeti's attire changes from light blue to black when things get tense. So the costumes are really extensions of the characters.
It's like they're not just wearing clothes. The clothes are saying something. And the source material talks about...
And like we were about to say, these visual cues often work on a subconscious level. It really adds layers of meaning without any dialogue.
Okay, so we were talking about costumes and how they're extensions of the characters. And before that, we were talking about camera angles. So now that we talked about costumes, let's continue with...
Yeah, that's a great transition. We can... Oh, go for it.
Hey, I'm wondering how costumes reviewing character compares to other techniques that Wong Kar-wai uses that also...
Okay, so it sounds like you're asking how costume choices compare to how the characters actually are or how they change. That's a great question, and it's something we were just touching upon.
Yeah, we were just talking about how the costumes are extensions of the characters. And not just for looks. Like they show character development.
Okay, that's one of the things that make...
Oh, go for it.
What other film techniques is Wong Kar-wai using to show emotion or character development?
Okay, so it sounds like you're asking what other techniques he uses other than costumes. We were actually just about to talk about repetition, which is another way he creates those cycles we were just mentioning. But since you asked, we can jump to other techniques now.
Yeah, we were just saying that the costumes aren't passive. They're another layer of expression and how that connects.
Well, if we're talking about other techniques and connecting this to the bigger picture, we were about to say how the repetition creates a hazy feeling, like how memory works. And that blurry feeling also shows up in how he uses music.
Oh, music, yeah. We were about to say how it's not just background noise, but that it actually...
Exactly. And the source material actually shows how this repetition reinforces themes like loneliness and longing. But you wanted to know about other things. So if we connect them to the bigger picture, he also uses color really intentionally.
Oh, for sure. We were going to talk about how it's like each color has its own meaning, its own emotion.
Yeah, and those techniques are usually seen in action films, but he uses them to show these fleeting moments of beauty or intense emotion. Like the source material even mentions the use of neon lights in Fallen Angels that create this feeling of isolation in the city. And step printing makes it feel poetic.
Yeah.
And those are just some of the things we were going to get into. But to go back to where we were going to talk about the repetition. So we've addressed your question about what other, and we can get back to repetition now.
All right. So it seems like with this brand new feature, it can be something that you can ask a question, but maybe the text chat is better. I think the Notebook LM seems to be really focused on what it's trying to tell you. And when you move into the audio chat, it's really cool that they can respond to you. But in terms of actually drawing information out of the sources, I'm wondering if just using the text chat is stronger. Let's try this again with a different type of material. In this case, it's about integrating EMDR with couples therapy. Again, this is existing podcast that I had that I regenerated, so it would be fresh and can be used with the new interactive mode. In this case, it's coming off of one magazine article. So let's start playing this podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a topic you guys sent in, and honestly, it's pretty fascinating.
Yep.
Hey.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Hey there. Want to share your thoughts on this?
Hi, yeah. I'm wondering if you can tell me about, some of the ethical challenges around integrating EMDR with couples therapy.
Oh, you're wondering if we feel challenges.
That's interesting. You're asking if we, as the hosts, have challenges.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we're talking about integrating EMDR into couple therapy.
And the article we're using does actually talk about the challenges.
Right. The author of the article actually mentions that therapists face these challenges.
He breaks them into three main areas: epistemological, modal, and countertransferential.
Yeah, so those are basically like different ways of viewing the problem.
Exactly. The first challenge, epistemological, is about the different viewpoints on where problems come from in the first place.
Right. The older couple therapy models, they look at issues as stemming from the whole relationship system rather than individual problems.
And that contrasts with EMDR, which focuses on individual trauma.
So yeah, that can be tricky for a therapist.
Then there are the modal challenges.
Yeah, those are more about like the practical side of things.
When to do individual sessions versus sessions with both partners, things like that.
Right. Balancing the needs of everyone.
And then lastly, the countertransferential challenges.
Which is when a therapist's own stuff could get in the way.
Their own relationship histories, their unresolved issues, past traumas.
I see what you mean. They can all impact how they approach therapy.
Exactly. A therapist's own upbringing, like exposure to parental conflict, can have a huge impact.
Which the article actually gets into.
It highlights
Oh, back to our listener. What's up?
So it sounds like there's some challenges here. What would the article say the benefits of integrating EMDR and couples therapy would be?
Oh, you're saying it's all about the challenges of integrating EMDR into couple therapy.
Right. We were just outlining the three main challenges that the article brings up: epistemological, modal, and countertransferential.
Yeah, the different viewpoints, the practical issues, and a therapist's own baggage.
And how all of those impact the ability to seamlessly integrate EMDR.
We were actually just about to get into the details of those challenges, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Right. We were planning to dive into what those. Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
So, putting aside the challenges, what are the upsides? What are the benefits? How does EMDR enhance couples therapy?
That's a good question. You're asking about the benefits of this type of therapy?
Yeah, like what's the upside? We were trying to get into that.
The article actually mentions that therapists are seeing some positive outcomes using EMDR in couple therapy.
Right, like increased empathy, better secure attachment.
It also mentions reducing reactivity and increased relationship satisfaction.
So, a lot of potential upside there, but as we said, there are some roadblocks.
Exactly, the challenges we were just outlining. We can talk about those in more detail.
Okay, so we'll circle back to the benefits, but let's return to the challenges we were just talking about.
All right, there you have it. The ability to interact seems really fun and engaging. And I think for people who really want to create their own sort of podcast or videos or vlogs where they're sort of interacting with a variety of sources, this brand new feature can possibly be interesting. But right now, as a tool for investigating a source, simply going in and typing your questions might be a more direct way to do that. You don't actually have to go into the podcast at all. You can, ask a specific question in your sources directly here. So depending on what your use case is, this may or may not be useful. Again, it's a feature that just dropped. I wanted to do a sort of like preview. I'll play around with it some more and see what one can do with it. But right now, it seems what's most interesting for me is that it gives you a fun way to actually join the conversation, even if that tends to be a less immediate or focused way to draw answers out of your source. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below.